The doors of the Grand Meridian Hotel swung open, their polished glass gleaming under the late afternoon sun. Maya Thompson stepped inside, a vision of poise and professionalism. She wore a tailored navy blue blazer over a white silk blouse, her gold earrings catching the light as she glanced around. The lobby was opulent with marble floors, a grand chandelier, and staff bustling in crisp uniforms. Maya adjusted her leather bag and approached the front desk, her heels clicking softly. A young receptionist looked up and smiled hesitantly. Before Maya could speak, a man in his mid-50s, wearing a sharp suit and an air of self-importance, stepped forward. His name tag read Daniel Baker, General Manager. "Good afternoon," Maya began, her voice smooth and composed. "I'd like to check in. I have a reservation." Mr. Baker's smile was tight and perfunctory. He gave her a once-over, his eyes betraying a flicker of doubt. "Name?" he asked curtly. "Maya Thompson," she replied, sliding her ID and credit card across the counter. He glanced at her ID, then back at her, his expression hardening. "I'm sorry, Miss Thompson, but we're fully booked. There's no room available for you." Maya's brow furrowed slightly. "Fully booked? That's strange. I made this reservation weeks ago, and even received confirmation yesterday." "I understand," he said, his tone dripping with insincerity. "But unfortunately, we've had some last-minute changes. Perhaps you can find accommodations elsewhere." Maya's gaze didn't waver. "May I speak with someone else? Perhaps they can assist me." "I am the manager," Mr. Baker said, his voice firm. "And I'm afraid there's nothing I can do." Behind Maya, a couple approached the desk. They were dressed casually, the man in jeans and a T-shirt, the woman in a sundress. "Hi, we don't have a reservation, but we were hoping to get a room," the man said. Mr. Baker's demeanor changed instantly. His smile became genuine and his tone warm. "Of course. Let me see what we have available." Maya's stomach churned, but she kept her composure. She turned to the couple and then back to Mr. Baker. "You just said there were no rooms available." Mr. Baker's smile faltered for a moment before he recovered. "I'm sorry, Miss Thompson. As I mentioned, there's nothing I can do." Maya picked up her ID and credit card, sliding them back into her wallet. She didn't argue further, but her silence was more powerful than words. As she turned to leave, her head held high, she noticed the younger receptionist avoiding eye contact, her cheeks flushed. Out on the sidewalk, Maya took a deep breath, willing herself to stay calm. She pulled out her phone and dialed a number. "Mr. Carson," she said when the line connected. "It's Maya. I need you to send me the incident reports and guest reviews for the Grand Meridian, and schedule a meeting with the board for tomorrow. It seems we have a problem." Maya stood outside the Grand Meridian Hotel for a moment, the weight of the encounter settling over her like a heavy shroud. It wasn't the first time she'd been underestimated or judged, but it stung nonetheless. She wasn't just a guest seeking a room. She was the CEO of Meridian Luxury Hotels, the very chain to which this property belonged. She glanced at the large, gilded sign above the entrance and tightened her grip on her leather tote. Her calm demeanor wasn't an act of submission. It was strategy. She'd learned long ago that power wasn't in the immediate reaction, but in the measured response. She stepped to the side, out of the flow of foot traffic, and pulled out her phone. As she dialed, she recalled the smug look on Mr. Baker's face, the way his words had dripped with condescension. "Mr. Carson," she said when her assistant answered. "I'm at the Grand Meridian, and there's been an incident." Her assistant, ever efficient, didn't need further explanation. "I'll gather the information and send it to you immediately. Are you all right?" "I'm fine," she replied, though her clenched jaw told a different story. "Meet me at the office tomorrow. This location needs a thorough review." Ending the call, Maya decided to walk around the area to cool her thoughts. She needed a clear head to approach the situation. The cobblestone streets of the upscale district bustled with life, but her mind kept replaying the interaction. Inside the hotel, Mr. Baker returned to his office, feeling a sense of triumph. Guests like Maya Thompson, those he deemed out of place, were, in his mind, a disruption to the hotel's refined image. He prided himself on maintaining what he considered the standards of the Grand Meridian, but not everyone on the staff shared his views. At the front desk, Angela, the young receptionist, leaned toward her colleague, James, who was manning the phone. "Did you see what just happened?" she whispered, her voice tinged with concern. James nodded grimly. Yeah, she seemed like she was telling the truth about the reservation. Angela bit her lip. She didn't look like someone who'd just randomly walk in. And Mr. Baker didn't even check the system properly before saying we were full. James glanced toward the manager's office door and lowered his voice further. "We both know how he is. He's done this before. Remember the guy last month who got turned away because he looked rough around the edges?" Angela nodded, her heart heavy. "It's not right." She was so composed, though. I'd have been furious. James sighed. "I just hope it doesn't come back to bite him. He's pushing his luck." Maya returned to her car, parked a few blocks away, and settled into the driver's seat. For a moment, she rested her hands on the steering wheel, staring out at the cityscape. She couldn't ignore the personal sting of Mr. Baker's actions, but this was bigger than her. As the CEO, it was her responsibility to ensure that her company upheld its values of inclusion, fairness, and impeccable service. Mr. Baker's behavior wasn't just a moral failure. It was a professional one that could tarnish the Grand Meridian's reputation. Her phone buzzed, snapping her out of her thoughts. It was an email from Mr. Carson, containing guest reviews, incident reports, and employee feedback from the hotel. She skimmed through the documents, her brows furrowing as patterns emerged. Several complaints cited poor treatment from management, particularly from Mr. Baker. One review described being ignored at the front desk despite having a reservation, while another detailed a dismissive attitude toward specific guests. Employee feedback highlighted a toxic environment, with several noting favoritism and implicit biases. Maya's resolve hardened. This wasn't just about her experience. It was about addressing a systemic issue. She crafted a message to the board, outlining her findings and requesting a meeting. Before leaving the area, she decided to check into another hotel. As she walked into a boutique establishment nearby, she was greeted with a warm smile from the front desk staff. The contrast was stark and affirming. As she settled into her room, Maya began drafting a detailed action plan. Tomorrow would be a pivotal day, not just for Mr. Baker, but for the entire Grand Meridian team. Back at the Grand Meridian, Mr. Baker remained oblivious to the storm brewing on the horizon. He poured himself a cup of coffee, congratulating himself on another day of maintaining high standards. He didn't realize that his narrow view of those standards would soon cost him more than he could imagine. The next morning, Maya sat in her sleek corner office, overlooking the city skyline. The sun streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, but her focus was on the meeting she had called with the board of directors. Spread out before her were printed documents, guest reviews, employee feedback, and performance evaluations from the Grand Meridian. Her assistant, Mr. Carson, entered, carrying a tray with coffee and a pastry. "The board is assembling in the conference room," he said, setting the tray on her desk. "Thank you, Carson," Maya replied, offering him a small smile. "Are you sure you don't want me to address this? I know how personal this must feel." Maya shook her head. "No, this is bigger than what happened to me. If I can't confront this kind of behavior head-on, I have no business leading this company." Carson nodded and left her to gather her thoughts. Maya's mind drifted as she reflected on her journey to this moment. Years ago, Maya had been a young graduate with big dreams and a modest budget. She had started her career working the front desk at a small hotel, learning the intricacies of the hospitality industry. Those early years weren't easy. She remembered the sting of a guest assuming she was a maid because of her skin color, or a supervisor passing her over for opportunities despite her stellar performance. But Maya was nothing if not determined. Every setback was a lesson. She earned her MBA while working full-time, built strong relationships within the industry, and eventually started her own boutique hotel chain. Her focus on inclusivity and customer experience set her apart, and when a major luxury brand acquired her chain, she was offered the role of CEO. Maya had accepted with one condition: she would have the authority to make systemic changes. Back in the present, she rose from her desk and walked to the conference room. The board members, a mix of seasoned executives and newer appointees, greeted her warmly. "Thank you all for coming on short notice," Maya began as she took her place at the head of the table. "I've called this meeting to address a serious issue at one of our properties, the Grand Meridian." She recounted her experience at the hotel, being careful to keep her tone professional. Then she presented the documents Carson had compiled, highlighting patterns of misconduct under Mr. Baker's management. "I want to make it clear," Maya said, her voice steady. "This isn't just about what happened to me. It's about ensuring that every guest, regardless of who they are or how they look, receives the treatment they deserve. Prejudice has no place in our hotels or our industry." The room was silent for a moment before one of the senior board members, Mr. Patel, spoke. "Maya, your leadership and integrity are why this company has thrived under your guidance. I fully support whatever actions you deem necessary." Others nodded in agreement. Maya outlined her plan: conducting comprehensive diversity and inclusion training for all staff members, implementing anonymous employee surveys to uncover systemic issues, assigning a task force to review policies and ensure accountability. "And as for Mr. Baker," she concluded, "I will handle that personally." Later that day, Maya arrived back at the Grand Meridian. She walked through the lobby with the same poise as before, but this time she wasn't alone. 2 members of the executive team flanked her, and a few members of the media discreetly followed behind, invited to document the event for a press release about the company's commitment to change. At the front desk, Angela's eyes widened as she recognized Maya. She quickly nudged James, who stood frozen, staring at the scene unfolding. Mr. Baker emerged from his office, his smile fading as he saw the entourage. "What's going on here?" he asked, his voice tinged with confusion and unease. Maya stepped forward, her expression calm but resolute. "Good afternoon, Mr. Baker. I'm Maya Thompson, CEO of Meridian Luxury Hotels." The color drained from Mr. Baker's face. "CEO," he stammered. "Yes," she continued, her voice carrying just enough authority to draw the attention of everyone in the lobby. "Yesterday, I visited this property undercover to observe its operations. What I experienced was unacceptable." Guests in the lobby paused, intrigued by the unfolding drama. Angela and James exchanged nervous glances, their hearts pounding. Maya addressed the staff and onlookers. "Hospitality is about more than luxury. It's about respect, dignity, and making every guest feel valued. Prejudice has no place in this company, and I will ensure that it is rooted out." Turning back to Mr. Baker, she added, "Your actions reflect poorly not only on you, but on this entire hotel. You failed to uphold our standards, and as a result, your position is under review." Mr. Baker opened his mouth to respond, but no words came out. Maya's words hung in the air, heavy with authority and purpose. The lobby, usually a hub of quiet sophistication, was silent save for the occasional shuffle of footsteps as guests stopped to watch. Mr. Baker's face turned a deep shade of crimson. "Ms. Thompson," he began, stumbling over his words, I didn't realize who you were." Maya's expression remained calm, but her eyes flashed with determination. "And that's precisely the problem, Mr. Baker. You treated me differently based on an assumption, not on the merits of my presence or the facts. This isn't about me being the CEO. It's about how you treat every guest who walks through these doors." Her voice softened, but the weight of her words did not. The true measure of hospitality is how we treat those who may seem different, those we don't know, and those who rely on us for respect and kindness. The gathered crowd murmured in agreement. Angela and James exchanged a look, relieved, perhaps, that someone was finally holding Mr. Baker accountable. After the confrontation, Maya met with the hotel staff in a private meeting room. Employees of all levels were present, their faces a mix of apprehension and curiosity. "I know some of you are worried about what comes next," Maya began, addressing the group with her characteristic composure. "Let me assure you, I'm not here to point fingers or create fear. I'm here to ensure that this hotel, and every hotel in our chain, becomes a place where everyone feels welcome and valued." She introduced her plan for diversity and inclusion training and announced the creation of an anonymous feedback system. "Your voices matter," she said, scanning the room. "If there's anything you've experienced or witnessed that doesn't align with our values, I want to hear about it. Together, we can create a better environment for staff and guests alike." Angela hesitantly raised her hand. "Ms. Thompson, will there be changes in management?" Maya nodded. "Yes. Effective immediately, Mr. Baker has been relieved of his duties. An interim manager will oversee operations while we evaluate candidates who align with our values." There was a subtle ripple of relief among the staff. Outside the meeting room, Maya lingered for a moment, observing the employees as they dispersed. Angela approached her hesitantly. "Ms. Thompson," she began, wringing her hands, "I just wanted to say thank you. A lot of us have felt unheard. I hope this is a fresh start for everyone." Maya smiled warmly. "It will be, Angela. Change doesn't happen overnight, but with commitment and honesty, it does happen." Later that evening, Maya sat in her office, reflecting on the day. It hadn't been easy to confront the issues at the Grand Meridian, but she knew it was necessary. She pulled up the reviews for the hotel once more, making notes on how to address other areas of concern. A notification popped up on her screen, a new review for the Grand Meridian. She clicked on it and read, "I've stayed at many luxury hotels, but today I witnessed something extraordinary. The CEO of the company visited and personally ensured that every guest and staff member felt valued. Her dedication to fairness and respect is something I'll never forget. This is what true leadership looks like." Maya leaned back in her chair, a sense of quiet satisfaction washing over her. The journey wasn't over, but today was a significant step forward. She closed her laptop and gazed out the window, the city lights twinkling in the distance. The world was full of challenges, but with perseverance and integrity, she believed change was always possible.